Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Hello, all you friends, you neighbors, family, citizens of the world. From Chicago, it's Michael James here for you with another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. This edition is for the week of November 12th, 2022. It's our post-election edition. It's actually number 126 since the pandemic began. It's for the week of the 12th, and we are recording it on the 9th, the day after the election. So we're still analyzing data, and we are more cheerful than we thought we might have been. We're going to have Don Rose coming on the show today doing some analysis of the election. And we're going to be joined a little bit later from bluesman Johnny Burgin, who is traveling across country on his way to Chicago to perform. Starting off with some good things this week, let me just say that waking up this morning, having gone to bed maybe at 11 o'clock, didn't know the outcome of some of the elections yesterday. I was pretty happy that we're still in the running. We have to take 2 of 3 of Senate seats that are still undecided, and I'm not sure of the details in the House. Don Rose can maybe help us out with that. And speaking of voting, get ready for the next one, because those of us who live in Chicago, we will have an election in February for both aldermen, alderwomen, and for a new mayor or mayor staying in office. So there'll be a lot of political work going on. People are already getting their petitions signed out and about. There's a lot of drama. We will be keeping you posted. On the labor front, these are just a few headlines I grabbed from Payday, which is a labor reporting service. The fellow who runs it's been down in Brazil reporting. And their headlines were Bolsonaro blockades lose support. And you'll remember that there have been some blockades after the election, after Lula won the election, moved to the left. And apparently those blockades are losing support. There was a strike in Ontario of 55,000 educators, and they won that strike. And for all the people who want good journalism, they should know that Gannett journalists had a one-day strike affecting, I think, 14 newspapers. We'll fill you in more on that as we know it. On the international front, there's a climate conference going on, COP27. It's in Egypt. And I noted that some indigenous voices are claiming that they are being ignored. A fellow from the Kalgal activist from the Torres Strait Islands, I think that's near Australia, has said indigenous peoples are fighting for their homes as conference discussions focus on climate finance. That's from The Guardian. And Russia has started to withdraw troops from the Ukrainian city of Kherson, Kherson. And also on the Ukrainian front, Zelensky has said Ukraine is open to peace talks with Russia, and he urges the world community to force the Russians to engage. On this day in history, in 1789, the incomparable Benjamin Franklin wrote, "Nothing is certain but death and taxes." In 1933, we saw the first modern sit-down strike by Hormel meatpackers up in Austin, Minnesota. And in 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled race separation on buses in Alabama is unconstitutional. I wish the Supreme Court would pay attention to that decision back in 56. I remember it. Going to bring you right home here to Rogers Park, where we originate the show from. We're in the 49th Ward, and I noted that the Rogers Park Business Alliance is looking for part-time crew members in their maintenance department, and it includes manual labor, et cetera. They do a great job here in the neighborhood. keeping things up to snuff. And if you're interested in that job, you could contact the Rogers Park Business Alliance at 773-744-1679. That's 773-744-1679. Rogers Park Business Alliance, keeping the neighborhood spiffy. Also, on the new business front, there are a number of new businesses in the ward, and I'm going to list them because there was an event this week to take people around and let them know about them. Ama's Boutique at 6971 Clark, the Rhapsody Theater at 1328 Morse, Trillo Resale at 71, or Trio, Trillo, Resale at 7110 Clark, the Lucky Devil Tattoo over there at 7064 Clark Street, and there's a place in a gas station on Devon called Burger Bite, 1500 West Devon. There's also a Morse Cuts and Hair with Flair on Morse Avenue, 1424. So our economy is growing right here in the ward. Moving right along. In case you missed last week's show, and you want to see how our commentators predicted things, we had Clem Balinoff of the Amalgamated Transit Workers Union and Marilyn Katz, who was a publicist and a political activist for many years. They both talked about the elections, and you might want to take them up on it because elections are something that's in our life all the time. And also last week, we caught up with our old pal, the founder of the White Panther Party, John Sinclair. And it was really good to check in with John and see how he's doing. He's doing pretty well. Okay, I think that'll be it for our little bit of banter. We're going to take a musical break, and we'll be right back with our first guest, who I believe will be Don Rose, giving us a little news, an election roundup, and some analysis. Stay tuned here on the left end of your dial to the Live from the Heartland show. Be right back. Well, we're back with more Live from the Heartland, and now it really brings me a lot of pleasure to bring on the guy I look to for all things electoral, the one, the only Don Rose. He's been on this show many times over the years predicting election results, and only once was it not so hot, and that was the one that fooled everyone back in 2016. But on this election, which, we're all so into it and watching it, and we've had such negative news, I was kind of intrigued by this Fox News pundit calling the GOP midterm performance a searing indictment of the Republican Party. A fellow named Mark Thyssen, Thiessen, he argued, "We have the worst inflation in 4 decades, the worst collapse in real wages in 40 years, the worst crime wave since the 1990s, the worst border crisis in U.S. history. We have Joe Biden, who is the least popular president since Harry Truman, since presidential polling happened, and there wasn't a red wave. That is a searing indictment of the Republican Party. That is a searing indictment of the message that we have been sending to the voters. They looked at all that and looked at the Republican alternative and said, no, thanks." So I don't really look at Fox News very much, and I didn't look at this. I got it from Alternet. So good morning or actually good evening to you, Don, and what do you think of that?
I think it's quite accurate. I would say there were 2 factors. One is the Republican Party, but it's very hard to distinguish the Republican Party from the Trump Party or MAGA or whatever. They're so interdependent on each other, except at the fringes. So it was the Republican Party delivering what turned out to be Trump's message at a time when the Democrats were just historically and, through no fault of their own on inflation, certainly vulnerable, and through no fault of their own on crime, were certainly vulnerable. these are not necessarily functions of your senator or your state rep or whatever. Certainly, inflation is not. We could go off on the whole inflation story. It was worldwide, whether you had a conservative government or a liberal government. So it had nothing to do there. So the two factors were Trumpism, the Republican Party, which permitted itself to become a captive, or the other way of looking at it is a functioning organ of the Republican Party. And it was helped by another product of the Republican Party, the Supreme Court, the very conservative Supreme Court, which overthrew Roe Wade in the face of what, any reasonably sophisticated political type would know was much more popular than people tried to make it seem. And the Republicans handled that badly when they were handed what was kind of a hot potato, doubling down basically on that. So this was the first strategic error. They probably could not have stopped the Supreme Court from issuing that very absurd decision, but they played that badly. So I would say yes. I would, from the other side of the fence, I would say that this Fox News guy was 100% right. And the question is, who's listening? Oh, you're muted.
Unmute. Okay. Yeah, I think that in the reporting in alternate, they said that most Fox commentators were saying how the Republicans did well, except for this guy, and he really stood out. So let me ask you to go a little deeper. How did the Democrats do it? How did we actually pull it off? I know that in my circles, there are a lot of people doing a lot of work, not only locally, but around the country. And I assume that's true for a lot of people you knew. What's your sense of how the Dems turned this out?
There's no question that well-organized volunteer groups all over the country. I've been in touch with a couple of networks of people who, in fact, by election day said, the polls are all wrong. What we're looking at on the ground is a lot better. And so they knew what was happening. The Democratic Party started out handling it pretty well with Roe. They did not find a means of working the inflation aspect, which they could throw back on a lot of Republicans, easily throw back on Republicans as corporate greed, which is one significant factor. So, but overall, with a few mistakes here and there, the Democrats handled it pretty good. And fortunately, since the Trump era, and even a little bit before, we were developing largely progressive but significant citizen organizations that went along with and well supplemented the work of the Democratic Party. We've had better leadership, a little better leadership in the Democratic Party now. You don't have these middle of the road old Clinton cast-offs running it anymore. Jamie is doing, I think, a good job. I think the next person to lead the Democrats should be Stacey Abrams, who, even though she fell into a bad situation in Georgia here, was responsible for the organizing for what became the Biden victory and the victory of two senators in that wonderful runoff situation. So, with people like that, she's kind of at the apex of citizen organizers. And there are people like that, some of them much more behind the scenes, are not necessarily candidates. So I really like what's been developing, and it affected young people too. So what we wound up doing, aided and abetted by the Roe decision, first off, something like 600,000 women registered who had not voted before. They turned out, and we finally broke through to the younger group on Roe, and also on the environment and on the question of democracy. Young people turned out at 2 or 3 times the rate they were expected. And that was largely the work of our volunteer organizations, like Swing Left, and I can't give you the names of all of them, Blue Beginnings here and so on, indivisible units all over the country, all over the city of Chicago. This is becoming the new face of the Democratic Party.
I like hearing all that. I'm going to fire one more question at you off of this little notes I have. What did you make of Biden and Obama going around in the last week, really talking democracy? Do you think that had, while the Republicans were screaming inflation, 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 crime, 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 we had those two presidents going around giving. I saw the Obama speeches, a couple of them. He was something else. But do you think that had any impact at the end, those guys turning out people?
I think it was a contributing factor, a significant factor, because people on both sides thought that democracy was at stake. There's a lot of true believer MAGA Republicans who fear us almost as much as we fear them. And we have to recognize that so they could check the same box that democracy is important. And the Republicans did not touch that one. They had truly very powerful weapons on the inflation and crime, and to some places immigration arguments. But it was a good choice to go along with, it was a more universal choice to go along with the arguments about Roe. So we didn't have to have, although they mentioned it, we didn't have to have a Barack Obama focusing on Roe, which would be redundant. He reminded us of the democracy issue, and the Republicans, although they might have made a similar argument to their true believers about us, we're pretty devilish, and so they yes, it was a significant factor. I think it was, it was not the perfect storm, but it certainly reverted or staved off what might have been an historical defeat.
Don Rose, let me ask you what you think it will be the outcome, how we're looking. Right now, it's a runoff between Warnock and the football player. There were 2% left on the Warnock's up, but just a slight bit, and they're both under 50%. In Nevada, Catherine Cortez Masto is down to let me see, it's 47.2% she has. There's 23% of the vote left to be counted. And looks like Mark Kelly with 66% counted. He's at 51.4%. We've got to win 2 of the 3 to keep 50-50 in the Senate. What's your take on that? And then we'll go to the House.
Okay. In the Senate, I believe, from everything I've been able to gather, and just looking back at the last election, that the Arizona Senate race is going to work out all right. Kelly is 4 or 5 points ahead. He's always been ahead in this race.
Yeah.
from what we can gather, the votes that are out are very substantially pre-election day voting. They're either votes that came through drop boxes, through the mail, and through some early vote, early in-person vote. So unless there's a surprise in there, I think there's enough votes in the uncounted votes. Unless we learn something brand new and are quite surprised, there will be enough votes for a clear victory for Mark Kelly.
Let me just make one comment. And I did look at some figures. It showed voting by county, and there's only one county in Nevada that went Democrat, but there were still 160 some odd thousand votes to be counted. And then when I totaled up all of the Republican counties, they had maybe 120,000 that weren't counted. So I don't know if that'll factor in, but I think Kelly's in pretty good shape. Am I talking about the wrong? That I got it mixed up?
Yeah, you got it wrong. That was the one I was going to go to next. Kelly is Arizona, and you were talking about Nevada.
Nevada. You go there.
I want to look at those numbers again, but from what I can gather and from what has been hinted at, early hinted at by workers in Nevada, they thought she was going to be okay. It's going to be a little closer to figure out than Arizona, but I would say that her coming back, Mastro coming back in Nevada, is feasible. I don't know about the governor. He's a little farther behind her, but that becomes less important in that circumstance. We have to remember they had, the old machine there that turned it Democratic, and with those food and beverage workers really have an operation going there. So I am very optimistic about Arizona, somewhat optimistic about Nevada. If we pick up Arizona, we can afford to lose Nevada. I hate to put it that way, because I believe that the odds favoring Warnock in the runoff on December 6th are very strong.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope you're all right. Let me. You got anything? I don't have details on the congressional races other than Illinois is a true blue state, and we have. I think we have 14 Democratic congressmen, 3 Republicans. Nikki Bozinski won the new 13th. We got the Supreme Court, and I think Sorensen, who's running for the Bustos seat out by Rock Island, I think he's in the lead. That's the only one that's not decided. What's your take on Congress in general and on how Illinois did?
Well, if a couple of more states did as well as Illinois and were as blue as Illinois, we wouldn't be having to chew this election over quite so hard. It would be a fait accompli. So we did very well in Illinois, and California may turn out to be nearly as good. There are congressional seats to be picked up there. And if you'll remember, it takes weeks and weeks for California to finally complete its count. But every day in California, the Democratic vote gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So unless they had some kind of reversal, which we did not in Illinois, and New York had somewhat of a setback. When you look at the big blue states, we outperformed New York. And whether California looks to us as the not look us as the model, matches what we did, or falls victim to what New York did, is going to make up the whole House issue.
What about around the country? You got any sense? There was you mentioned turnout, and you talked about the youth vote. This guy Maxwell Alejandro Frost, who won the Democratic seat from Orlando, where Val Demings had given it up to run against Rubio. He got a lot of attention. He's the first Generation Z guy to win a seat. What about him and any other good news you've heard around the country in the congressional races?
Well, the only one, outside of the fact that we're holding the number down, I still think the odds are that we're going to lose it. But if we lose it by under 10, it'll be a victory. I don't know what's happening with Boebert. It looks to me like Lauren Boebert, the pistol packing mama, may go down, although the New York Times, she's running behind now, was running behind all evening. The New York Times said that the votes that are left lean toward her, but more of those votes lean toward her earlier anyway. So I think just for self-satisfaction, I would like to see nothing better than that lady go down, even though Marjorie Taylor Greene could not. And I guess Sarah Palin is out of it. So I can't give you a good head count on what's happening in those in the congressional races. All I know is that the women's vote mitigated it. And what's very interesting to me, just as a sidelight, when we go back to the question of choice, in the states, there were 4 states that had pro-choice or anti-choice measures on the ballot, and the pro-choice won all 4 states, even the states that went Republican.
Yeah, Kentucky, I know.
So we were talking earlier about the mistakes the Republicans made. That's one that ain't helping them much.
Let me see. Let me go along here. I'm going to ask a question that our friend Tom Clark gave me. He said, "Did the youth vote and abortion prove to be the blue wall holding back Trumpism? Don't we need to be even more worried about Ron DeSanctimonious? Will it be the anti-immigrant, anti-repro rights Florida governor and Griffin Money, who now lives in Florida, against JB Millions for president in 2024? That's a Tom Clark question.
I don't think it's going to be JB. I think he's been a good governor, but that to one side. What might happen is that the Republicans dump Trump, or he's put in jail. One or the other before thing. It's conceivable as a sidelight that if he's convicted on 1 or 2 of the potential charges against him, that he will not be able to seek federal office again. We don't know that, but that's something to have in the back of our heads. Just look at the basic numbers going into yesterday. Biden stood at 45% positive. Trump was 37% positive. That tells a great deal of the story right there. And it tells the story of the Republican mistakes by going along with the Biden candidates. The most important the most important Trump candidate that was chosen, a celebrity, a doctor, got his ass kicked by a really great Democratic candidate. The kind of candidate we need more of. And we may similarly kick the other guy in that runoff. I'm hoping that we don't need the runoff to win, because I definitely want to see Warnock return. I think he's one of the finest candidates, and not just candidate, but senators that we've seen in a first term. I think he's got a great future, and if his race is not the focal point because of winning the Senate, which it might be if we carry Nevada, then I would say that he will win very big, because the only reason people have to vote for the football player is the fact that their team Georgia is doing very, very well and will still be in the game come December 6th. But he is possibly the least fit, nearly corrupt candidate I've seen for running seriously in a major office around the country. I mean, this guy is unspeakably bad.
I was really surprised that he got as many votes as he did. And I'm wondering, how do you figure he got nearly 50%, Warnock got 50%, and Stacey Abrams got 47 or something? What was the gap? Who's voting for Walker that didn't vote for Stacey Abrams?
Well, there were a whole lot of Republicans and possibly some moderate Democrats who very much appreciated the fact that the governor stood up to Trump.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Raffensperger. They became national heroes in a way, and independent voters could very easily, in good conscience, vote for them, while those same independent voters and some moderate Republicans, if there is such a thing left, couldn't vote for the football player.
Yeah,
I think that's where it comes from. The other end, he got a lot of votes, out of his celebrity, and a lot of people don't care about his private life. He's a big, a great athlete.
I was in a swimming pool this morning with an African-American friend, and he said he talked to his cousin, who's a Republican in Georgia, and all his cousin could talk about what a great player that Walker was. Enough of Herschel Walker. Let me ask you, how did, you talked about turnout. You talked about, young people and women turning out. I think in some places, Black people turn out. I don't know about Asians, Latinos. The word is, and it's too bad Beto didn't pull off a victory, but I did see some information that he held the border, which is a concern to the Democrats in Texas. They had, in the Valley, had lost some momentum, they thought. And this story said that he held the border. So I'm also curious about the role of Native Americans, perhaps in Arizona and Nevada, if you got anything on that. And then that's enough. I'll ask another question.
Well, I don't have any facts and figures on the turnout and the organization of Native Americans, except we had a Native American who held a seat, a seat that was very vulnerable, which included a lot of crossover people. Native Americans, to the extent that they vote, come out and are not blocked through all kinds of devious mechanisms, right, lean Democratic, and that works fine. We've still got to untangle the puzzle of the Latino vote, and we've got to begin separating it out and figuring out what we are missing in dealing with them. They are correct. They categorically by saying, the Democrats have just counted on them, as many Blacks say. They've just taken them for granted. And I heard somebody on the radio, on the TV this morning, say that they found that something like 40% of the Latinos interviewed by a friendly source, MSNBC, said they did not hear anything from either party.
Wow.
So,
this is a lot of information that we're going to have to talk about going forward. I will ask you on this note, though, what do you think is the future of both the Democratic and the Republican Party? You're addressing the Democrats and the need to do more work with Latinos, et cetera. How about something on both parties and their future?
The future is going to be very tough. If the Republicans keep making the mistakes and hang in with the Trumpers, they will be committing their own suicide. Otherwise, we've got an imbalance in Democrat versus Republican due to mindless gerrymandering and the Electoral College. So that's something we've got to be thinking about dealing with. Can we get around the Electoral College question? Can we, at some point, finally get a Supreme Court, have the Supreme Court deal with the issue of partisan gerrymandering? Those two things make the Democrats stride ahead very difficult. What strengthens us is that original blue wall that looks like it's still there. Wisconsin looks a little shaky, but clearly there. They elected a governor and came very close with a Senate candidate.
Yeah, and Michigan was good.
Michigan was dynamite, winning up and down the line, as was Pennsylvania. And so Minnesota, I don't think Minnesota was ever in any danger, although they have elected Republican senators and governors. But I think that's coming in there. But if those three states hold, the future of the Democrats then depend on cultivating Arizona, which is feasible, strengthening Nevada, which re-strengthen Nevada. They've had problems there. And but it ain't going to be an easy road. In a sense, one can wish that they keep Trump around because he's the best weapon we have against them.
Yeah, that would be. We'll see what happens with that. Do you think that Biden should run again, or do you think there will be some real moves towards someone else being the standard bearer?
Well, at the moment, I would say probably it would be best if he didn't run, but I don't think it's a sure loser if he does run. If he runs against Trump, he'll win. If he runs against DeSantis with a reform-looking Republican Party that has dumped Trump, DeSantis is going to be even more dangerous than Trump because he's smarter and knows how to maneuver and thread some needles.
Yeah, he's problematic. How did progressives do in general, Don?
Well, it was progressives
in the party, in the Democratic Party.
If you're talking about progressives, overall, they played a minimally great defensive game, and progressives prevented a total catastrophe.
That's good.
That's good.
Okay, we're going to run out of time here. Let me ask one more thing. While all this is going on, we've got people in Chicago, the politicos, they're passing petitions. They're getting candidates on the ballot if they choose to run. What's your take on the February election that looms for those of us only in Chicago? Can Chewy claw through a primary without the teachers union and the SEIU support? Will they come around because they both came out for other people?
Did SEIU come out? Did they come out for the other guy? I hadn't heard that.
I don't know for sure. I'm reading something that someone else put in here. Well, I know the teachers union did support someone else.
There is no question that Chewy is a very strong candidate against her. 2 polls have showed that. And her support is fractionated so badly that, unless some strange superstar emerges from the hinterlands the way she did, in her way, when she was down, at the 2 or 3 point positive level, and then became a favorite, I would say that it's going to be a pretty tough battle between Chewy and Lori Lightfoot.
Yeah, we're going to have Chewy on soon. We did have Clem on last week, Clem Balinoff talking, and he's definitely kind of knows what's going on with Chewy. Okay, Don Rose, this was good. Is there anything you'd like to add in the last closing minutes of this segment of Live from the Heartland?
Well, just keep your fingers crossed about Nevada. And that's it. We've covered an awful lot of ground.
Yeah, you did good. I spent a good portion of the day working on this too. I looked at a lot of figures and things going on, and I didn't put it in the best order perhaps, but I learned a lot from hearing you talk, and I'm greatly appreciative. I'm sure our listeners and viewers will be too. So get yourself some rest, keep analyzing the data, and we'll talk to you soon, brother.
Great time.
Right on. You are listening to the Live from the Heartland show for the week of the 13th of November, and we will be right back with our next guest, who is the rockin' Johnny Burgin. Be right back with more Live from the Heartland here on the left end of your dial. Hey, we're back with more Live from the Heartland. I'm Michael James. I'm here in Chicago. We're recording this on the 9th of November, and we're doing it for the week of the 16th of November. And I'm really glad to bring on an old guest on this show. He's not that old a guy. He's a young guy. But the one, the only, used to be rockin', I don't know if it still is, Johnny Burgin. Good morning to you, Johnny. Good afternoon, good evening.
Hi, Michael. How's it going, guys?
It's going
back.
It's probably afternoon where you are. You're in Eugene, Oregon, right? Or in Portland now.
Right. I'm right at this moment. I'm in Portland doing some dates in the Pacific Northwest and heading out to Chicago.
And how soon will you be in Chicago, and what are you going to do when you get here?
I'll be here on Thursday afternoon, and I'm playing at the Skokie Theater Thursday, the 17th, this Thursday, 7:30 hit. It's the Johnny Burgin Review, so it's not just my show, but I'm featuring some great artists as well that normally don't make it to Chicago.
Well, you're going to be Thursday the 16th?
Thursday is the 17th.
17th. Let me look at my calendar, because I just gave people the wrong information about the show. So today is the 9th, and next week on when we record will be on the 16th, and the show. So this show is actually going to be on the 12th, not the 16th. So I made a mistake to all you listeners and viewers. But Johnny Burgin's interview will be on our show that is broadcast on Saturday, as well as sent around the world. And it's on youtube.com/Heartland Media. So Johnny, you're coming to Chicago, you're playing the Skokie Theater. You got a bunch of other musicians that you're supporting and involving. Who you got coming in there with you?
All right. Well, I've got my regular drummer, Steve Doherty, who he's from Wisconsin. He's toured with me a lot over the years. And then I've got Marie Martins, Swedish slide guitar queen. She's on bass. She's toured with me often on bass, and she will be featured on guitar and vocals. She's got a really nice CD, came out a few years ago, called Traveled, and she's a special singer with a real soulful style. So I like her a lot. Then I have Ben Levin from Cincinnati. He just got off the Joe Bonamassa Blues Cruise, nominated for a BMA. He just turned 23, and he's a teaching instructor and formerly a student at the Pinetop Perkins workshop experience down in Clarksdale. He's had an amazing career for someone of any age, much less someone at his age. Real sharp young guy who's raring to go. So I really like him a lot. I'm on his latest record on Biz Tone label group, along with Bob Stroger and Little Ed and Little Jimmy Reed. So I think he's got good taste in people to record with. So, and then one more person, Joel Astley, who is very well known in Seattle. He's won a mountain of awards from his local blues society, has a nice following out here. And we work together when I come to the Pacific Northwest. And he just did a great record at Greaseland, but it's not out yet. Features me, Kid Anderson, June Core, and Randy Bermudez, great bass player, plays with Charlie Musselwhite. So Joel is an up-and-coming young harp player. So we're gonna do these shows out here in Washington State and in Tacoma and Hood River, Oregon, and then we're gonna be riding out east, stop at Rapid City, South Dakota, and then Minneapolis on Wednesday, and then make it to Thursday for the Skokie Theater show. So it's nice to present all these people in a nice, intimate environment.
Where's the Skokie show at?
It's at the Skokie Theater. I'll have to give you the address.
Yeah, I'm going to try to make that. That'd be great. Let me ask you a couple of questions while I got you here.
Yeah.
The way you're billed, I think it was Wikipedia. You were born in 1969, making you a young guy.
That's a matter of interpretation.
A blues guitarist, harmonica player. You've got 10 albums out. You play on you're the headliner. Sometimes you play with other people. Blues, electric blues, instrumentals, guitar, harmonica, vocals. You used to go by the name Rockin' Johnny. You dropped the Rockin', I understand. What's the deal with that? Because I did listen to some video stuff of you, and it was more jazz. It was some jazzy stuff.
Okay. Well, I dropped the Rockin' because, when I started calling myself Rockin' Johnny, I kind of wanted to be like Good Rockin' Charles, the harmonica player, who's a kind of obscure guy, but I just thought he was the greatest, and I loved his singing and everything, and I thought it was a cool name. But excuse me, I'm sorry. But back then, there really wasn't this massive rock blues style that was really dominant or anything. It was just the blues. It was kind of a black music style, and it wasn't rock music, it was blues music. So now the rock blues thing is really big, but I don't play rock blues. That's fine if you do, but it's not my cup of tea. But how can I possibly go around saying, I'm Rockin' Johnny, but I don't play rock blues? I can't say that anymore, and I can't ask anybody else to. So Rockin' had to go.
Well, that's good. I'm just going to call you Johnny from now on, instead of Rockin' Johnny. But tell our listeners.
I'm finally my own name, just like John Cougar Mellencamp.
Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. You were born up north, but you ended up in Mississippi, where your dad was from. And you then came north again to University of Chicago. You got involved playing some blues music, and I think you were playing somewhere that you weren't happy with your performance, and you really then delved into learning the trade. So tell us a little bit about do a little autobiographical sketch here.
Well, you're right. I went to University of Chicago, and just like lots of other blues heads, and it was definitely a factor in my decision. And I met a guy, Dave Waldman, who has played piano with Jimmy Rogers and played harmonica with Tail Dragger. And we were both DJs at WHBK, the local campus radio station. So he took me out there, and I thought I could play because had taken guitar lessons, and I'd even seen some live blues bands. I finished high school in South Carolina. I'd seen Eddie Clearwater and Luther Guitar Jr. Johnson Sleepy LaBeef, which is more on the rockabilly side. But I thought I knew something, But I went up there to try to play, and it was just a complete failure. And that was the first time I ever went into a black club, and I saw Tail Dragger and everything. And my goal was to play with Tail Dragger, but I wasn't nearly good enough, So I had to just throw everything away and start over. And the interesting thing was, once I went out to like the black blues clubs, it made me listen to the blues in a different way because I imagined those records being played live by those people in those places. And all of a sudden, it's like I heard it and saw it for the first time. I had to understand it in a context. So that's what got the ball rolling. And eventually I did start with Tail Dragger. I went on to play with Sam Lay, who recently passed. And
Yeah, we had Sam he used to come to the Heartland when Corky would be there, hang
he
out.
was a master drummer and a real blues man. He's the guy who turned me into a real guitar player. But sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, that's good. I'm starting to think about all of the people that I, my early days in the early 60s, going to the down to hear blues and stuff. I used to go to the Blue Flame at 39th and Drexel, where Paul Butterfield was before the Butterfield Blues Band. He was playing with Howlin' Wolf's old band. And I remember meeting Charlie Musselwhite at what do you call it? Jazz Record Mart when it was over on Wabash down in the old days. So it makes me want to go out and hear more music. And, the thrill kind of being a young person going to these clubs in black neighborhoods was pretty moving and influential. And I imagine in your life too.
Oh, yeah. And then, I managed somehow to scrape through college, despite the competing interest of playing gigs and wanting to go out all the time. I managed to get through. And then I think I went out every night, like the whole 90s. If I wasn't playing, I went out and saw somebody. I used to play like 6 nights a week. My day off was Tuesday, and I'd go see Eddie Clearwater.
Uh-huh.
At Blue Chicago for $5, and then they got to know me. They just let me in, But anyway, it was just every day was like Christmas. There were so many characters. It was so much fun. I mean, you're always learning something. There was always something spontaneous that happened, It wasn't like a Joe Bonamassa Arena Blues tour. It was this spontaneous, organic community music.
Who do you really like? Who are you like your favorite musicians and people influence you the most?
Well, Little Smokey was a big guy for me. I mean, he had all this power and style. Big Smokey Smothers was really great, and he was like the other side of the coin. He had a more 50s style. Those are people I really loved. I love Earl Hooker. I think he's my favorite guitar player. But I never did get to meet Earl Hooker. I like Eddie Taylor a lot. I just missed Eddie Taylor, but I played a lot with Eddie Taylor Jr., his son, who also recently passed. He's just a few years younger than me. But I miss him a lot. I think about him a lot. Playing with him was great. Coming out to California was great. I got to meet and play with Charlie Musselwhite, who's on my live recording. He's someone I've always really looked up to. I got to sit in with Elvin Bishop. I really like Elvin Bishop's Big Fun Trio stuff. There's a lot of good stuff out today that I really love, but my absolute favorite music for blues for guitar players is Eddie Taylor, Luther Tucker, who I only saw once because he lived in California when I was in Chicago, and then he died so young. Earl Hooker, like Fenton Robinson, the Myers brothers. Hanging out with Dave Myers was amazing. Seeing him play guitar, Little Walter, and that kind of thing. And I know
Little Walter.
Yeah, Sammy Lawhorn. I'm crazy about Sammy Lawhorn. I like these Chicago players, and it's so funny. No one's really playing that stuff now, really.
You talking about all these guys, it starts making me think about people, and I just popped in my mind Slim Harpo.
Oh, I love Slim Harpo,
Yeah.
of course. I mean, these are the classics. I mean, the all-time greats, the classics. It's like Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Sonny Boy Williamson, Little Walter, and then you've got like the classics below that are like Slim Harpo and so on, down the line. I mean, these are the great books. I mean, Chicago UFC was the great book school. This is the great books of the blues, and like it's got to relate back to that some kind of way. I'm not saying you can't change it up a little bit, but it's got to connect to it too.
Well, I'm going to come see you at the Skokie Theater, and I'm going to see how that turns out. Let me ask you a little bit. One more question that someone suggested. The pandemic shut down touring bands a whole lot. I know my kids' band Twin Peaks kind of got closed down, and it hasn't really opened up again. You were playing some backyard concerts like in Skokie. What was that like? And what was the pandemic? And what did you do during that time that either hampered your style and your music or helped to develop it?
Well, it was pretty scary for a while, but I ended up moving back to New Orleans. Not back. Let me start over. It was pretty scary for a while, and then I ended up moving to New Orleans to be with my mom. I ended up playing a lot of shows, outdoor shows in New Orleans. I got my first vaccine. I just drove. I was too young to get it in Louisiana, but they'd take anybody in Mississippi. So I drove to Biloxi and got vaccinated. And I was like playing the Juke Joint Festival, that month. So I started like gradually working again. I did a record with Johnny Sansone as a sideman. That was really cool with me and Mike Morgan on guitar, great guitarist from Dallas. And I managed to stay busy, and I also started doing these YouTube guitar lessons, which I hope some of your listeners might check out.
You give us a youtube.com. What's the /
Johnny Burgin Blues.
Okay, good. I'm going to
Johnny Burgin guitar lessons. You'll find it. I've got a lot of them on some of my favorite stuff. And like I started doing one just for the heck of it right during the shutdown. I did a 2-minute chat on Sun Seals. Another one of my heroes, and people liked it. So I did another one on Fenton Robinson. Somebody loaned me a dime, and I realized I was playing it wrong. I've been playing it wrong for 20 years. And then it was like, you ever realize, like, have you heard that phrase, the cleaning demon, where, oh my God, my house isn't clean. And you start like obsessively cleaning. I started going obsessively, like putting myself to the test and realized that I was coming up short here and there. So I really tightened up my game just by doing these lessons. And I also connected with a lot of cool people. And I personally learned a lot, and I hope I helped some people. I did all these lessons on all these people that no one's ever done lessons on, like Johnny Littlejohn, Byther Smith. They're absolutely Louisiana Red. There are no YouTube videos about how they played other than the ones I did, because they're not exactly household names, but to me, they're heroes.
This is good. It's a lot of resources for people who are learning to play or already playing. Johnny Burgin, tell us one more time about the date that the reason you're driving across country right now, and you've stopped in Eugene or in Portland, but you're on your way to Chicago. You're making a few stops. You're going through Rapid City. I'm going to send you a contact there that you might want to, or I'm going to tell him to come hear you.
Thanks, Mike.
Tell us about the Skokie Theater one more time, and then any future projects you got going on. You're still with Delmark Records. Give us a little shot here at the end.
You bet. Okay, my Chicago area show is Thursday, the 17th. Showtime is 7:30. Skokie Theater, 7924 Lincoln Avenue. And it's the Johnny Burgin Blues Review, featuring myself, Ben Levin, young piano player from Cincinnati, Joel Astley, up-and-coming harp player from Seattle, and Swedish slide guitar queen, Marie Martins. So as far as what's coming next for me, other than, lots of stuff on the road, I'll be teaching at the Pinetop Perkins School again, teaching for the Chicago Blues Network. That'll be in June of next year. Do have a new blues CD coming out on Delmark Records in early 23. It's done, just needs to be mixed and mastered. And I'm working on an all-instrumental rock and roll album. I'd rather use the term instrumental rock and roll than surf, but you can call it what you want, So, and I'm having great fun with that. One song is done, so it's gone from my bucket list. It's gone from something that's kind of an ephemeral dream to something that is going to happen. Something that it's already partially reality. I only need 2 more songs.
Well, I think we've got some video of you playing, and we'll see if we work that in. Otherwise, we'll play some of your music coming in with you and going back out. I want to thank you, Johnny Burgin. I'm going to come see you on the 17th. I got no excuses. I mean, Thursday night football is not something I need to watch. So I'll come check you out. And I'm really glad that you took time to pull off the road and get yourself situated so you could do this short little interview.
Michael, thanks for what you do. I love your radio show, and see you there. Thanks for everything.
Right on, brother. Okay, everybody, you have been listening to the Live from the Heartland show. I'm going to make a couple of announcements here. First of all, the sports report, which we put to the back of the newspaper today. Basically, the Bears were more fun to watch this week. Justin Fields was really something else and gives us hope for the future. The Bulls have been fun to watch. The Blackhawks, I think, are doing okay. I don't got any news on the Sox or the Cubs. And University of Illinois is doing a good job. That's the sports report. Let me also let you know that women's rights are human rights. The Women and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights exhibit is going to be up at the Yuri Eichen Gallery, 2200 South Halsted. Feminist posters on display from November 11th to January 4th. Good to check out. All right, coming up next week, I'm not sure what we have, but in 2 weeks, we're going to have Dick Simpson with more election analysis. So, with all that said, we want to thank you for having tuned in, or whether you listen or you watch. We're on WLUW 88.7 on Saturday mornings. We're at youtube.com/heartlandmedia/videos all the time, as well as podcasts on Spotify and Google. And under the Live from the Heartland show, we're on CAN TV. And we want to thank everyone who helped make this show possible. That's Josie Staller, the program director over at WLUW, the incomparable Katie Hogan, Lynn Orman Weiss, Tom Clark, Emilio Davis, and our engineer, co-producer, Hal James, and of course, our guests, Don Rose and Johnny Burgin. Do good in the world. The world needs all the good that you do, that I do, that we do together. All power to the people. Have a great week. Over and out.
When the lights go out and it's time to go, you'll be at peace as I ride down the road. It may be a while, but I'll be back again. And when I do, I'm going to take you to be my friend. I'll ease your mind and pick you up off the ground. you're gonna be all right when your blues man comes to town. When your blues man comes to town.